I don't expect a huge dent in the French economy from Brexit, but there is no doubt that the risks are tilted toward the downside. Claus Vistesen, Pantheon Macroeconomics. The IMF has warned that greater uncertainty and financial volatility will delay investment around Europe as a result of the Brexit vote, not least in France. So just how significant a blow to France's GDP do you expect this to become?
I think actually that because a lot of France's GDP growth leading into Brexit was driven by domestic demand, I actually don't expect a huge dent to the economy from Brexit. But there's no doubt that the risk is tilted to the downside, especially in France, because France has been running a very large trade surplus with the UK. And even if we assume that trade will continue to flow between the two countries, simply the slowdown in UK domestic demand, which is likely in the short run, and the strong appreciation of the euro relative to the pound will dent the surplus, and that probably will hurt investment. But it's important for me to point out here that French investment was already running very strongly going into Brexit and was probably going to slow anyway. So I think the French economy slowed in the second quarter. I also actually think that investment could remain weak in the third quarter, but that's not only a Brexit story. I think Brexit will probably make it worse, or the uncertainty of the UK referendum likely will make it worse. But in some sense, that was already baked in the cake because we've had very strong investment data in France.
Having escaped deflationary territory in May, France's inflation data remained positive today. Though would you expect the economy to be resilient enough to avoid dipping below 0% yet again?
Well, inflation is kind of living its own little life in France and the rest of the Eurozone, I think, because, first of all, inflation lags. So no matter what you might think that the effect of Brexit is going to have, it's not going to impact inflation data as we're going to see it in the next couple of months. So I think inflation in France is going up steadily. Base effects points to an increase in the year-over-year rate in energy prices, and I also think core inflation in France will pick up slowly this year as services inflation increases and as domestic price pressures increases due to still strong consumer spending. And even if there is some uncertainty over Brexit, unless the economy in the Eurozone and France absolutely collapses in sort of a 2008 style recession, inflation is just going to continue to trickle up no matter what happens in the Brexit negotiations. So in the short run, France is out of deflation. It'll remain so in this business cycle. I think inflation is going to continue to edge up.
And lastly, France's economic minister, Emmanuel Macron, appeared to drop his biggest hint yet that he is set to challenge embattled President François Hollande this week. How could such political developments relay onto the French economy?
Basically, the way I interpret the news that Emmanuel Macron might sort of be a candidate to challenge the incumbent, it's sort of the first starting, sort of the sound of the starting gun to the elections, which obviously will be held next year. So I think these kind of news and speculations are only going to increase. In terms of the specifics of Mr. Macron and whether the market likes him or not, I think the market probably would be favorable to, let's say, a rise in the poll of Macron, because he's kind of this free market neoliberal candidate, whereas, of course, if we start to see Le Pen increase in the polls, that would have an adverse effect on the market, because she said that she'd like to put the French EU membership to a vote. So I think we're going to see that juxtaposition going into the French election result next year. But in terms of sort of the very specifics of what it means that Mr. Macron now appears to be throwing his towel into the ring, or the inverse of that, as it were, be throwing his chip into the bowl, as it were, and to be a candidate, it's too early to say. I mean, we don't know. We know there's going to be an election, and it's only natural that candidates start to come out now. And I would expect more candidates to come out, whether it's going to be Macron or he's certainly a strong contender. But I mean, I think we're going to see more. But that's all going to start now, warming up, as it were, to the French election next year.
Thank you, Claus. Be sure to check back with Dukascopy TV for more updates throughout the week. We'll see you next time.